All right, so good evening, everyone. I hope you all are doing well. I'm Vipul Mahagamage, and I'm the co-host of today's webinar on how to write a conference paper organized by the Young Researchers Club of NSBM Green University. Join me in moderating this webinar is Natari, the president of the Researchers Club. Before we go into this session, let me give you a quick overview of how things will unfold. First, our distinguished speaker will deliver an insightful presentation, and after that, we will be having the Q&A session, which will be moderated by Natali. So if you have any questions, please feel free to use the chat and we will direct them to Dr. Sulakshana during the Q&A session. Now, without further ado, let me introduce our keynote speaker, Dr. Sulakshana De Alwis. Dr. Sulakshana currently serves as a lecturer at Abertay University, UK. Before joining Abertay University, he was the head of research and publications at NSBM Green University. During his time at NSBM, he also served as the head of the Department of Management and the course director for Plymouth affiliated degree programs. Dr. Sulakshana earned his PhD from Stockholm University. He also holds an MSc in Management Psychology with distinction pass from the University of Nottingham and a Bachelor of Science in Human Resource Management with first class honors from the University of Sri Jayawardhanapura. Dr. Sulakshana, good evening and a warm welcome to this session.
Thank you very much, Vipul, for that nice introduction. So yes, again, thank you very much for inviting me for this session, and I will discuss with you how to develop a conference paper, especially from your final year dissertations, so that you can use those research that you have done with much effort and publish them, perhaps with some help with your supervisor. So let me share the screen first so that we can start our presentation. Okay, so today I will discuss with you about how to convert your thesis to a paper. So I hope I can give you an overall view about this so that you can use your research to do some publication. So first of all, let's start from the structure of an empirical paper. So if you look at this, it is more or less like your dissertation chapters, but it is not exactly like that. So we need to do some adjustment. So we need to keep in mind that, developing an empirical paper does not mean you just, copy and pasting things from your dissertation report. You need to put some effort here. So you need to make more summarized version of your final year report, because usually I think in your final year report, if you have done a dissertation, you have written about 15,000 words. So when it comes to empirical paper, a conference paper, it is more or less you have a limited word count around 6,000 words, sometimes even less than that. So we need to develop the paper thinking about the word count, because usually conference papers, even the journal papers, have a strict word count. So we cannot just send our report as the paper to a conference or a journal. So we need to do some adjustments. So you can see in any empirical paper, if you have seen empirical papers, journal papers, they have these headings or the structure. So it starts from the abstract. So abstract is something like a summary where we state the best or the most important information about your paper. So mainly in abstract, you should talk about your research objectives and the research question, 1 or 2 sentences about that. And then how did you conceptualize research problems? So basically your theories that you have used in your study, and then your methodology. How did you collect data and analyze it? What is your sample? Who are your sample? Things like that. And then you can also mention the main findings and or recommendations of your research. So abstract is like a smaller version of your paper. So you need to summarize everything in your paper into 300 words. And then introduction, literature review, or we call it as theoretical background, method, section, findings, discussion, conclusion, and the reference list. So this is the main structure of a paper. So I will discuss with you one by one in each section what kind of things you need to add so that you have an idea what you need to cover. So basically, if you look at the introduction section, in here you need to talk about the background of your topic. So you need to give an kind of explanation about what is your topical area. Let's say you are doing about work-life balance and performance, then you need to talk a bit about what is work-life balance, what is the importance of it. Not much, maybe 2-3 sentences. So you give the background to the reader. What is this paper about? And then so you talk about the broad area in the background. Then you narrow it down to your research problem. So you state your research problem, what exactly you are investigating in your study, and the objectives of your study, and then why this study is important. What is the importance of your study to readers in terms of practical implications, in terms of theoretical implications. So basically we need to look at these parts. So you start from the overall area of your research, then you narrow it down to your research problem, and then you state the objectives and importance of your study. So you need to, you cannot use 2,000 words here. So you need to limit yourself for at least 500 words. But if you have a higher word count allowed, you can go up to 700. But I always prefer, if it is a conference paper, 500 to 400 words is more than enough for the introduction section. So this is where you need to think. You cannot just copy and paste your introduction chapter. Introduction chapter copy paste කරන්න බෑ. ඒක summarize කරන්න ඕනේ. You need to identify the important factors in your introduction chapter, and then you have to summarize into 500, 400 words, right? So mainly in introduction section, you need to cover these aspects related to your research problem, objectives, and what is the importance of this paper, importance of your study. And then if we move into theoretical background, I like to use this word rather than literature review, because in empirical papers or in conference or journal papers, we more or less look at developing a theoretical explanation for your research problem. What my theoretical background එකේදී අපි කරන්නේ අර research problem එකට theoretical explanation එකක් දෙන එක. Theories use කරලා අපි අපේ research problem එක explain කරනවා. ඒ නිසා rather than calling as a literature review, it is important that you use it will be more better to use the heading theoretical background. So here, what you need to do is you need to talk about the main theories or the concepts that you used in your study. So let's say when it comes to a topic like work-life balance, you usually talk about the work-life balance models. So we can explain about the work-life balance models and the model that you used in your study. In here, the most important thing is we don't mention everything here. දැන් අපි බැලුවොත් ඔයගොල්ලෝගේ literature review chapter එකේ ඔයගොල්ලෝ theories ගොඩක් ගැන explain කරලා ඇති. ඒ වුණාට එහෙම දාන්නේ නැහැ conference paper එකට. What we explain here is the model that we used when we collect data and analyze the data. So we don't have to mention all the theories related to our topic in this theoretical background section. We only use the main model that we used to do the research, right? And also the conceptual framework. If you are doing a quantitative study, if you are doing hypothesis testing, you know there is a conceptual framework in your study. Conceptual framework also should be presented within the theoretical background. So you cannot, I think if you look at your chapters of literature review does not include conceptual framework, it is a different chapter. So you need to, integrate all these together. And also you need to use, you need to reduce the word count. Maybe usually students use 5,000, 4,000 words for the literature review chapter. But in a paper, we can only go for as far as 2,500. Again, that is if you have a word limit like 7,000. If it is below that, you need to think about something around 1,500 and 2,000 words. Can වචන 2000කට ඔයගොල්ලෝගේ literature review එකේ තියෙන information අඩු කරන්න ඕනේ. ඒක නිසා තමයි අර main model එක විතරක් use කරන්න කියලා කියන්නේ. And also we need to state the hypothesis. So what I usually recommend is you present the theory, and while you're discussing the theories, you present the hypothesis rather than just stating the hypothesis like a bulleted list. You need to present the hypothesis as you develop the theoretical discussion. I will show you a paper at the end of the presentation, then you will understand what I was talking about. And then finally you can present the conceptual framework. So in theoretical background, we give a theoretical explanation about our research problem. Then we can move into the methodological section or methods section. So here, these things can be explained. Especially you need to mention how did you collect data. So if it is a questionnaire, you need to explain how did you develop the questionnaire? Did you take data questions from other research papers, or did you develop on your own? Then how did you distribute the questionnaire? And also you have to present the reliability and validity data in methods section. Reliability, validity data, Conbrach alpha, a data ඔක්කොම දෙන්න ඕනේ methods section එකේ paper එකේ. Usually I have seen our students present them in findings section. So it's wrong. Conbrach alpha, reliability data, validity data. If you have about normality of the data, if you have anything about normality, you can also present them in the methods section, not in the findings section. Then one of the most important thing is samples. One of the most important thing is about sampling. So you have to mention who is your population, from whom did you collect data, and how did you collect data, what is your sampling method, how did you approach the people? How did you select the respondents? So if it is a convenience sampling, you have to mention that. If you went to random sampling, you have to mention that. You can also mention about data analysis method if you need, but it is not that important, because when you present the findings, people can understand how you have analyzed the data. But most importantly, don't mention that you use SPSS. If you are going to mention the data analysis method, you have to mention the specific statistical tests that you have used to analyze data. But this is bit different when it comes to qualitative. So qualitative also, you have to mention about the data collection method. So if it is interviews, interview structure, questions that you use in the interview, your sampling method. But it is essential in qualitative papers that you extensively discuss about your data analysis method. So how did you analyze the data? If it is a thematic analysis, what was the process you followed? Things like that needs to be explained in the methods section. And if it is a qualitative paper. In a quantitative paper, there is no much requirement in stating explicitly which test you use, because we can see it in the finding section itself, right? So again, you can see the count, word count, less than 1,000 is always recommended for methods section of the conference paper or even a journal paper. If it is a qualitative one, you can get into 1,200, but try to be concise as much as possible. That's the most important thing. And the next one is the findings section. Again, this is a concise section. So I have seen visually in the dissertation reports, you have very large finding sections. Finding section එක ගොඩාක් දිගයි. හැබැයි discussion section එක හරි පොඩ්ඩයි. But it should be other way around. ඒක අනිත් පැත්ත වෙන්න ඕන. Finding section should be concise as much as possible. So basically, if it is a quantitative paper, we can present the statistical tables like mean, standard deviations, correlations, regressions table, and some numerical explanations like the mean level, standard deviation, correlations. And you can also say whether, just you can say whether your hypotheses are accepted or not. So not much information. It is just about your findings. You don't discuss it, right? You just present what you have find in the findings section. If it is a qualitative, you don't have statistical tables. You need to present your themes. So the themes, each theme, you have to explain what is the theme is about. Then you have to back up it by interview excerpt, interview quotations related to that theme. So again, try to be limited as much as possible, especially if it is a quantitative paper. 1,000 words is what I recommend. Qualitative papers, you can go around 1,500, but try to be concise as much as possible while you present the important aspects of your findings. And then this is the most important part of your paper, right? So most of the time people does not see the value of this. If anyone is interested in your paper, this is where people are interested. So this is where you can sell your paper, make your paper a good paper. So give more effort to the discussion section, right? So in discussion section, you interpret your findings. So you explain, what did you find? Okay, I found work-life balance is positively affecting performance. This means this. So that means when people feel they can have a good family life while they're working, they feel more motivated, and because of that, they perform well, right? So you have to explain your finding. You just doesn't tell, okay, in my regression, I found work-life balance is positively affecting performance. Not like that. You interpret it. You get the help of previous literature, theories, and you explain your finding in a more broader level. Discussion එකේදී ඔයගොල්ලෝ හොයාගත්ත දේ පහුගිය literature, concepts, theories use කරලා backup කරන්න ඕනේ මේ finding එක ඇයි වැදගත් වෙන්නේ කියලා. Right? So you need to justify the value of your finding. What is the impact of your finding? මේක නිසා ඔයගොල්ලෝ කොහොමද theory එකට contribute කරන්නේ? Practice එකට contribute කරන්නේ? What are the theoretical implications of your study? What are the contribution for the industry, for the practice from your study? These things you have to mention in the discussion section. So basically, this section again, you can use 1,000 to 1,500 words. Always make sure that you put effort to the discussion section, because that is the one you sell your finding. That is the section you sell your findings. So if it is a reader, they always focus on the discussion section more than other sections, because that is where they can see what you have found and how it links to the existing knowledge, existing theories, existing research in the field. So always justify your findings in the discussion section. That's the most important thing. And also explain how it is valuable for the current knowledge base of your field, and also how it is important for the industry or the practitioners of the field. And then finally, you can conclude. In conclusion section, you can talk about limitations of your study. So if you have any limitations in terms of collecting data, if you had problems in, using analytical tests, so your limitations, don't just list out generic limitations. Generic limitations, there were limitations research එකේ තිබිච්ච limitations ටික මෙතනට. Then future research avenues. So based on your findings, what would be the next step of this research field? So it is again based on your finding. You need to contextualize your finding. Based on that, what you suggest for the future researchers, right? So basically these are the things. Then the reference list comes. So you need to do the reference list just as you did in the dissertation. So basically these are the sections, and these are the things you need to add in each section of the paper. And as I said, it is important to look at the word limit. You need to look at the section limits with the word count. So this is word limits I gave you is more in the line of 6,000 to 7,000 word limit, but sometimes some conference papers have lesser than that, 5,000 words, sometimes even 4,000 words. So then you have to adjust the limits based on that. The main thing is you need to have bigger sections in terms of your theoretical background and the discussion section. Those are the two most important sections of your conference paper or the journal paper. So this is the overview. I will show you a paper about this. So this is a paper written by me. So you can see this is the introduction section. Here you can see that if you look at the first part, I start from a very generic aspect. So in contemporary society, technology has become a significant influence in all aspects of human life. So I don't go into much specific details. I talk about a broad area of my study, and then first two paragraphs is like that. And then I come into first 2 or 3 paragraphs. Then here in this section, so this is the background up to this, right? So first 4 paragraphs is more or less about the background of the area. And then you can see this is where I mention the research problem, the objectives, and the value of the study. So there's no specific way that you need to present information in the introduction section, but start from the broader view, then narrow it to your area, and then talk about your research questions and objectives and the significance of your study. Then you can see in theoretical background, I present the most important concepts related to my study. And you can see end of each section, I come up with my hypothesis. So based on that discussion, I develop the hypothesis 1. Then I start the discussion on work-life conflict. Then I present information about theoretical information about it. Then I present the hypothesis 2. Then I go into the next concept and I talk about the hypothesis. I present the hypothesis 3. Then there's a mediator in my study. I talk about it and I present the hypothesis 4. Then you can present the theoretical framework in a figure like this. Then you can see in the data collection section, method section, I present how I collected the data, which kind of information I gathered. And then I talk about the participants, and then I give participant information. Now, participant information like gender. Then අපි දකිනවා ඔයගොල්ලෝ dissertation එකේ finding section එකේ දාන්නේ අර ලොකුරාවුමක් දාලා males ලා මෙච්චරයි females ලා මෙච්චරයි. ඒවා දාන්න ඕනේ මෙතන method section එකේ. Not as a finding, right? It is the attributes of your sample or participants. So you can see my information about the participants are given in the part in the method section, whether they are male or female, which sector they are working, whether they are married or not. All those information I have entered in the participant section. And then measures means how did I measure my variables? So basically, how did I develop questions for my questionnaire? So you can see here each variable, how do I develop the questionnaires? I use other research papers to develop the questions. So I have mentioned that. Then I have mentioned the Conrad alpha in that. And also the if you have validity information, those things. So these are the variables I measured: segmentation preference, perceived intensity of work, ICTs, work-life conflict. So I have mentioned about how I develop those questions, the reliability and validity information. Right. So you can see I have not mentioned how I analyze the data because it's a quantitative paper. So finding section or the result section, I have only presented these tables and these ones because I did a kind of structured equation. You may have not done those. So you can just present your regression table and then explain it using statistical terms. You can see here I use statistical terms. I don't talk about the concepts or my findings. I just talk about how whether it is statistically significant or not, just something like that. And then the discussion. You can see in the discussion, I interpret my findings. I get the help of other researchers, their findings. Then I integrate with my findings. Then I suggest the future research opportunities, what we can add to the theory, what we can add to the practice for HR practitioners, and then finally limitations and future research for concluding section. So this is something that you can also follow. I can share this paper with you if you like. So mainly, this is what I needed to tell you. Most important thing is just don't copy and paste from your dissertation report. Dissertation එකේ තියෙනවා copy paste කරන්න එපා. ඒක ලස්සනට flow එකක් එන විදිහට adjust කරලා ලියන්න ඕනේ. There should be a proper flow. There should be a proper rationale when we read a paper. So if you just copy and paste chunks from your report, it won't make much of a good paper. So you need to always try to summarize the relevant areas and try to present those ideas more concise way rather than just copy and paste from your report. That's the most important thing. So that is what I wanted to share. If you have any questions, I can answer. Okay, there's some questions. Can you give us any advice on selecting the right conference, submit or verify paper? So what I advise for you, if you are going to select a conference for first time, try to select a local conference. There is a conference happening at NSBM, ICOBI is there, and also there are local universities like Java, Dinapura, Colombo, Kelaniya. They also have a lot of conferences throughout the year. So you can talk with your supervisor. There's no factors that you should consider. Only thing is, if it is the international level conference, you will have more competition because a lot of people will be submitting. So your quality of the paper should be top notch to be selected for an international conference in another country. But if you are a budding researcher, new researcher, you can start from local conferences. You can start from the NSBM conference itself and publish your first paper. So that's my advice for you. And then the second question, Sri Lanka quantitative-driven qualitative research. What are your view on advantages and disadvantages of qualitative research compared? Well, it's all about how you see the problem. Most of the time when it comes to European context, they prefer qualitative research. Then if you go to USA, they prefer quantitative research. When it comes to qualitative research, I can't say there is any advantage or disadvantage. The main thing is we can study in depth on our issues. So we have the ability to question more from our interviews and gather more information compared to a quantitative study. On the other hand, I can say it may be an advantage because you don't have to go for a larger sample. But when it comes to the qualitative analysis, you have to do it more or less manually. So you can't, use something like SPSS and get output in 2-3 seconds. That is one reason people are not involved in qualitative research. Qualitative research means a bit more effort. You should be good in writing, especially if you are doing qualitative research, because you need to write a lot to explain your findings. You have to interpret your findings. So this too is used more or less in research. There is no hard and fast rule. Qualitative is better than quantitative. It's based on your own thinking and research philosophy. And there is mixed research where we involve qualitative plus quantitative methods together. So it's up to the person to decide which method. Literature review, as I said, in literature review, I would like to name it as theoretical section, where you need to present the main concepts. You don't talk about all the theories that you mentioned in your dissertation. You use only the main concept. කියන්නේ ඔයගොල්ලෝ එක concept එකක් use කරලානේ data collect කරන්න, question එක develop කරේ. අන්න ඒ theory එක විතරයි අපි conference paper එකක literature review නැත්නම් theoretical background එකේ present කරන්නේ. ඒ වගේම ඒක ඇතුළෙම තමයි අපි hypothesis ටික present කරන්න ඕනේ. අපි වෙනම hypothesis present කරන්නේ නැහැ. conceptual framework එක hypothesis එක ඒ literature review එකට නැත්නම් theoretical background එකට embed කරන්න ඕනේ. Right? We should integrate the concept, hypothesis, and conceptual framework together in this section. Okay, I can show you a qualitative paper also. Okay, so this is a qualitative paper written by me. Again, same introduction. So you present the research question, the objectives, and the background of your study. And then you come up with the theoretical background. You come up with the theoretical background where you mention the studies. So here there is no hypothesis, right? There's no need to hypothesis. You just explain the concepts you use, or you give a theoretical explanation for your research question using the concepts in the field, and then the methodology. So you can see the data collection strategy. How did you collect the data? Then this is based on a workshop. So I have given information about the workshop. Then it is about the questionnaire or the interview questions. Then the participant, who are the participants, then their gender, the working places, things like that. Since this is a qualitative paper, you have less number of participants, you can present them with a kind of a table like this, but these names are not real names. We call as pseudonyms. So I have given a name, but it's not the real name of the person, right? And then the data analysis, as I said, in qualitative paper, you need to explain how you analyze the data. So you have to explain your data analysis process. Then findings, you present the themes. So you can see that this is the one theme, impact of information technology in work-life boundaries. Then I have explained it. When I explain it, I have justified my arguments using the interview excerpts. You can see here in these are interview excerpts. So there are different teams. This is another team. I have explained it. You can see I have backed them with the interview excerpts. And then once they are finished, discussion section, I have discussed the importance of, I have discussed my findings using the previous literature, and then the theoretical implications, practical implications, and the conclusion. So that's how you need to use a qualitative paper. Okay, any more questions?
So if you have any questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat box. If not, you all can unmute and talk. So, Doctor, I think I think those are the questions we have. So, thank you, Doctor, for accepting our invitation and joining with us today. It was really an insightful session, and we are truly grateful for your time and contribution. And we are really hoping to have you back in the near future again. So, yeah, thank you again. So, Vipul, over to you.
Of course, Natali. So again, Dr. Sulakshana, thank you very much for joining with us. I think it was a really insightful presentation. So once again, thank you very much for humbly accepting our invitation and giving us your time. And as for the participants, I hope that you all got something out of this session. And again, thanks to you also for participating. And I hope you all have a good night. Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Sulakshana again.
Thank you very much, Vipul and Natal. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Doctor.